Hello, hello, guys. Welcome to the process. Tonight we will be talking about break rooms, how break rooms are configured, and we'll also be talking about social media policy. So stay tuned, guys. We will be back in a second with Miss Alessandra Nicholson and Sterile MD, guys. Stay tuned. We will be right back. Hey, welcome back, guys. Tonight we're talking about break rooms and the situation of break rooms within our departments. Alessandra, what's your situation on break rooms in sterile processing?
So I've seen a lot of different types of break rooms. Um, I've seen some really nice ones where the staff have a great lounge. They've got an education space. They have like their Amy books and things in there that they can check in on. Some of the spaces I've been in have had TVs. Um,
Yes,
and I would say probably the nicest break room that I'd ever been in, they actually stocked like food and snacks and stuff for the staff.
yes,
Um,
very
but
nice.
right, it was nice. But I've also seen break rooms that are like in a corner or not really break rooms. There's no like good seating areas. There's no good places to keep your food. So it kind of varies from facility to facility what you find.
So, what are the basic needs for a break room? What are the basic needs?
So for me as a manager, I try to prioritize first that my staff have a place to store their food. Um, a lot of times we don't think about this when we're making like break schedules and things, but a lot of the staff members are planning their meals around the cafeteria. So I try to make sure that they have a space where they can keep their food. Other big deal is that they have a space where they can actually break, like they can rest their body. They can have a seat. They can, have a quiet moment. Somewhere that they can, watch their TV on their devices. Maybe they bring out their tablets or whatever the case may be. And if we can, depending on the facility, try to have like things like a coffee maker or a toaster or just the basic appliances for like a little kitchenette if I can. So those are the things that I try to prioritize, just making sure that as an eat-in space, you have everything that you need. If I can stop cups or ketchup packets or whatever I can get, I'll make sure those things are in there. But that's pretty much the basics of it.
So, where's the budget coming from for our break room?
So it's gonna depend. Budgets depend on facilities. Some SPD budgets are gonna have funds in them for just basic monthly upkeep of food. So like things like the cups or plates or utensils. You may also be in a space where you can order actual like like the little milk boxes or juice cups. Because essentially whatever is in the cafeteria and the cafeteria provides can be ordered by an individual department. But it's just going to be depending on your department's budget allocation for food in the department. Some
So,
places I see it as standard, like in the OR, you usually do have a stock of like coffee and jam, peanut butter, things like that.
so sometimes the OR budget and the sterile processing budget are the same or intertwined. So, in terms of recreational needs, how is that um, how is that separated, or is it separated?
Again, it's gonna depend on that department policy or that department budget. Because as you said, some departments it's a little bit mixed. So even like your department may have funds set aside for like parties or celebrations. Like that's where we'll find our budgets for like celebrating SPD week. So it really does. It depends on the individual facility. Sometimes even if you don't have those things built into your budget, facilities will pull them out of other spaces. So if there's like a nursing education fund, they may do like little snacks or gifts for the departments based out of that, or different departments may gift you based on the budgets that they have in their departments.
Hmm. So let's talk about refrigerator etiquette. All right. So I've seen many persons bring in large bags, bring in cups without lids, which ends up spilling in the
Yeah.
refrigerator. People leave their food for days, weeks, sometimes.
Yeah.
It grows, it morphs into something else.
Yeah.
Um, in the refrigerator, persons also order out, and they bring that in.
Yep.
Um, and
People
some people just
eat your lunch, take your
some people
snack.
just some people just take what take what they see, and they haven't brought anything to the table. So, what's the proper etiquette in terms of break room? What would be ideal for a person bringing stuff in? If you see something that's not yours, in terms of cleanliness, what does that look like to you?
So definitely taking my manager hat off for this one. I definitely want to approach it from my tech days, especially when I was a travel tech. This was a really big problem in one of the spaces that I was in. So I would say basic etiquette is just like at home. You want to, make sure you clean up your space. One important thing to remember about break areas, and this is for any break area in the hospitals, the break areas are typically not cleaned by EVS in the sense that they will come in, they will mop your floors, they will, keep do a general upkeep, but they're not tasked most places with cleaning your kitchen appliances, your refrigerators, things like that. Those are considered for personal use unless you have food in them for patient care. Then that becomes something totally different. So some depending on your hospital, you may or may not have an EVS staff member that is responsible for cleaning out your refrigerator. But even if they are, I just highly encourage people to just be responsible adults. If you bring some food, make sure you take it back out. Try not to grow science experiments at work because everybody else needs to share that space. And
Definitely.
especially if you didn't bring it and you didn't ask for it, don't take somebody's food. This is just basic, civility amongst grown-ups, adults. But I've definitely had experiences where employees have, stolen my lunch or
Oh
taken,
man.
taken other snacks from other employees. And I know the time that it really affected me the most was I was working a night shift and someone ate my lunch. And, night shift is not a situation where you can just order out and, replace your meal. So I was like, okay, that means that I have to go this entire 8-hour shift with no food because there's no cafeteria, things like that. So just be mindful of that type of stuff. And then lastly, if you are storing food, I really would have a conversation. If you're taking up a lot of space, I really would have a conversation with my team just to say, hey, is this okay? Because it is a community space, and I do understand the urge, if you will, to store certain things you're gonna use often. Like if you drink coffee every day and you bring creamer, or whatever the case may be, if you do toast in the morning every day and you bring jam, I think that's a good economical use of that space. However, it really does need to be something that like everybody is agreeing on that process because some areas are really large and they have one refrigerator. And so if the shift before you or after you is leaving food, it can make it difficult for you to store your lunch.
Hmm. That's very that's very good etiquette. So, what if someone breaks etiquette? What are the how do you deal with that? how do you how do you deal with that? Do you because some from my experience, some managers do not involve themselves in anything which happens off the floor. So if it happens in the break room, out in the hallway, all managers won't, prioritize that dispute to say,
Yeah.
so how would you deal with that? Somebody comes to you and say, hey, someone took my lunch. How would you deal with that?
Personally, I would, if I can, I would try to have a conversation with whomever the person is and maybe responsible. But a lot of times when that stuff happens, it was a bandit. The refrigerator bandit came through, took the snack. Nobody knows where it went, who got it. So usually it's not a situation where I can tell my staff, "Hey, did you go back and did you talk to such and such?" So that being said, for me as a leader at that point, the best that I can do is make announcements to my staff. Sometimes I'll put up signs if I can, just to remind people, like, "Hey, this is a shared space." But I also, as a manager, I try not to, like you were saying, I try not to get too involved in those types of spaces because I really want my employees' break time to be their break time. I don't want them to feel as though I'm micromanaging their break space. So because it really is for them, I really strongly feel like management shouldn't be there most of the time. Like the employees should have a space where they can go, relax, not worry if a managers or supervisors are over their shoulders. I mean, obviously we're in the hospital, so we have to adhere to policy, HR policy, no matter where we are. So that's one thing I would say for the managers is that if you are avoiding, managing conduct in those spaces, that's something you're going to want to look at because once we walk through those doors, we are all responsible for our etiquette and our behavior throughout the house, not just in your immediate work area. So,
Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah, and typically I see persons typically that you know that's from my opinion. I don't want to say, people tend to take bring that behavior from outside
From
into
home.
the department. It's not something that just happens because you work in SPD. So,
No.
um, so next question: what appliances are recommended for break room in cell processing, or are not recommended for break room in cell
I was
processing?
about to say it's more so probably what's not recommended. I won't say any appliance specifically because your individual hospital policy is going to determine that. Um, However, I would encourage you if you're a technician, or if you're a supervisor or manager, I would highly encourage you to check in with facilities prior to bringing in any electric equipment into the hospital. So like I recently had a rash of folks bringing in UV boxes to clean their phones, which I think is great. Then maybe that's a hospital, a product that we can apply at the hospital level at some point. But pretty much anytime you plug anything in, it now becomes a facilities conversation. So, and they have a whole, just like we have books of regulations and standards, so do they. And there's a lot of rules. Like one of the big ones, low hanging fruit for SPDs is daisy chaining. So if you're not familiar with that, that's taking any of those extension cords and plugging more than one
Yes,
into each other, right?
yes, that's dangerous.
Don't do it.
Don't do it. Don't
Don't
do
do
it.
it. It's highly frowned upon from a life safety standpoint because it can cause a fire. So you want to check in with them. I know I do have, some peers that have like refrigerators in their offices, like mini fridges. I've seen employees bring like mini crock pots to work, the NutriBullets. I've seen those come in. So again, it really is going to depend on your individual facility.
Definitely. And one of my facilities actually went system wide and removed all the adapter cables.
Yeah.
If it wasn't plugging directly into an outlet, they would pick it up, they would take it out, whoever had it, whatever office it was, because definitely is a fire hazard.
It's a
So
fire
guys,
hazard.
pay attention to that. Don't
And
bring your. Mhm.
even your snacks, even the type of snacks you bring, just be mindful of the group. Like I've had experiences where folks, I've had hospitals that have banned popcorn, because if
Mm.
you'll pop it and it'll burn and then you have that scent all throughout the unit. So you want to be mindful of stuff like that too. Like if you got some really stinky fish, or whatever the case may be, maybe you might want to take that to a different break area if you got a small space that doesn't have a lot of ventilation, because different folks have food allergies, which is something else to think about. So you want to be mindful of that. You want to definitely have conversations about that. And if you are an employee with a food allergy, you want to be vocal about that because you're gonna have different people bringing stuff from all over the place. So
Yes. So here's the question: if those people watching now, if they do not have a break room, how do they navigate that?
if you don't have a break room, hopefully there's a couple options. So most places will have a cafeteria. Usually those places are going to be full during the busy meal times, right? So one of the tips I try to give to techs is if you can plan your breakfast, your lunch, your dinner around like the start or end times of those lunch periods because in the middle it's always going to be peak. And one of the most common complaints that I get from staff is that they just don't have enough time to get through the cafeteria when it's time for them to take a break. So be mindful of that, and then you can kind of explore what other spaces you have. I've been in hospitals that have had auxiliary spots for their lunchroom, so there may be different break rooms that are set aside for the community on different floors. You are most often in SPD, you're a part of the perioperative department. So if you feel comfortable, you can definitely check out the periop lounge room because they almost 100% usually have one. And then lastly is going outside. So I do encourage my SPD techs to get time outside, especially if you're doing an eight-hour shift or more. It's just a good stress relief. However, and this is gonna depend on your hospital's policy, but for our tire etiquette, I do encourage you to remove your scrubs before you go outside, so that you're not tracking any bugs on your scrubs back into that sterile area.
No one's moving their scrub. Let's get that clear now. No one's
I
taking their scrubs off.
Yeah, there are texts that take them off. But more often than not, I see texts that try to find ways to do a shortcut. Like maybe they put a big heavy jacket on over
Yeah,
their scrubs and stuff like that.
yeah,
That you didn't do what you wanted it to
yeah.
do. You
Exactly.
just put your dirty coat on top of your scrubs and went outside. Now you got two extra dirty things.
So, what about those facilities that are in a metropolitan city setting? So that's kind of difficult. Like
I
when
mean,
you're in midtown and everything is outside.
it is. It's difficult, but it's one of those moments where you have to kind of call yourself to excellence because, as you said, we can. If you go to any hospital right now, you could probably drive around the block and find one or two people outside in those blue scrubs. And I hate it when I see it, because it's like I know you know better, or I hope you know better. I'm gonna assume that your hospital gave you your policy and that you know better. And also, understanding that those may be different procedure areas. It's not always SPD or periop, but nonetheless, you're going to be right back at a patient's bedside, and you're tracking in whatever it is you pulled in from outside. So, I mean, and hopefully with COVID now, people are having a deeper understanding of how we pass germs around to each other. So
Mhm.
maybe they
Yes.
might want to do a little better, but I mean, whether you're in a rural area or a city, it's going to be the same. Once you step outside of that restricted area, which is really whatever your department is, you need to either be putting on some type of coverall jacket or, changing your scrubs. And if you're going outside the premises, you really do need to take your scrubs off.
Yes, definitely. So, guys, we'll be taking a short break and we will be right back. All right. Any questions, comments? And we also have a call in number. So,
Yeah.
call in. Yeah. So, we'll be right back. See you in a second. All right. Welcome back, guys. Welcome back. We're on the topic of break rooms. And Alessandra and I are going through the do's and don'ts of a break room and what you could do if you don't have a break room. So, where did we leave off?
Well, we talked a little bit about finding alternative break spaces. One other one I want to bring up is meditation rooms or chapel areas. So definitely be mindful of the rules. Usually they don't allow like food or drink in those spaces. But most hospitals that I've been in these days have at least either a chapel where you can go in and either pray or meditate, or they have actual meditation rooms where you can just kind of go in and have a quiet space. So those are some other options.
Yeah. Hold on. I just want to give a shout out to Leslie. Leslie put in a couple comments. Just want to say thank you, Leslie. Thank you for tuning in. Let me give her a little round of applause here. A little soft round of applause. So, so, so thanks, Leslie, for tuning in. Appreciate it. So let's continue. So break rooms. So we don't. If we. So what about beds in break rooms or areas where persons could lay their head? Um,
I've never seen it. Um, I think it's an interesting concept. Um, I know some places do have call rooms, but usually the call rooms are set aside for either physicians or staff that are actually on call for procedures and things of that nature.
mhm,
But I think it's something that I think people should think about. At least have some type of reclining chair or a
right.
couch or something. Because I mean, just as far as breaks are concerned, I really do feel like you should be able to do whatever it is you need to do to recover. And nap is a very great way to have stress relief and recovery. So, if you've got 30-minute lunch and you want to, spend 20 minutes of that napping, I'd like to think that facilities can at least provide some quiet space for you to go to. Because what I don't like to see is my employees have to go to their cars or go out into unprotected spaces and try to relax or try to rest.
So I learned something recently in terms of designing facilities. The Facility Guidelines Institute, FGI, also provides information on facility construction.
Mhm.
So as FGI is the Facility Guideline Institute is the authoritative source for guidance on healthcare and residential care facility planning, design, and construction in the United States. So anything referring to planning, I believe they do cover break rooms also. Um, so you could check that website out. It's FGI, it's Facility Guidelines Institute. So if you want to know anything about your facility, and also,
You check that
um,
out. You could check OSHA as well.
mhm,
Doing some research for the show, I found that I was actually kind of surprised to find that OSHA doesn't have a direct requirement for break rooms or
mhm,
break spaces. But what they do have is essentially just have some rules and boundaries about where you can and cannot eat. So like they have rules that you can't eat in spaces where you could be exposed to blood or bodily fluids, but they don't dictate having a break area for staff.
mm, interesting, interesting. Yeah, that's good. Um, Knowing that now, I understand why some break rooms are constructed the way they are.
Like aftermarket.
Um, right, it's a closet, but we're gonna put some chairs and an outlet in there, and you guys could eat there.
Like a break room.
And that's about it. So,
I
guys,
mean,
if you, a lot of things in terms of staff retainment is not solely based on how much people get paid. It's based
absolutely,
on how comfortable they are when they come to work, how much management is paying attention to their needs.
absolutely.
So if your team is asking for a break room, somewhere to eat, pay attention to that because that might be the breaking point. They might go to somewhere else for
Yes.
$2 more or $2 less based on having a break room or facilities that will adequately support their needs. So definitely pay attention to that.
Yeah,
I've
I
seen
would
people
definitely agree with that.
leave just because they're unhappy, and they sometimes they don't even know why they're unhappy. They're just unhappy because you know they have no breaks, they have no break room, they have uh, 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 no locker room,
Yep.
or everyone has changed in the same locker room. Um, if they have a break room, there's no microwave, no refrigerator. why you call it a break room. There's probably a sink in there. So,
Yeah.
it's like little things like that frustrate you, especially when you're coming from home, when you where you have access to all those things, and you come into work for 8 hours, sometimes more, and
Well,
those things are not available.
yeah, I think it's even more frustrating because you're in a system. So usually there are other departments around you that have that, even if you don't. So it can be really, like you said, it can be something that really costs you team members in the sense that people don't feel valued, um because they don't have their creature comforts, and I think that's 100% spot on. I mean, we do it for surgeons all the time. If we want, to court them, we want to try to get them to come and do cases with us. We
Hmm.
take them out to dinner. We buy new instruments. We roll out the red carpet. So you really do have to find ways to make your staff feel like superstars every day, because that's what they are. So like I said, whether or not that's keeping snacks stocked, whether or not that's bringing in goodies every once in a while, um, making sure they have cups, making sure they have plates, making sure they have just the basic things that it would take, almost like to run a house, if you will, so
Hmm.
that they're comfortable.
Yeah, and I have one comment to make on goodies. This has nothing to do with break rooms. But guys, if you're giving your team a meal and you're giving them the same flat pizza every time, it gets dull after a time. It's like, oh yeah, we did a good job, guys. Here is
Ah,
pizza from around the corner, and we had that for
all
the
tired
last.
of burnout pizza.
We tired of the crusty pizza. Yeah,
Yes. It's This
you
is
know.
another space where I feel like management can advocate for their staff, because a lot of times when people want to buy food for the department, they will come to the managers first, and they'll say, "Oh, you guys are doing a good job. We want to buy you some pizza."
Right.
And I always make it a joke with everyone, and I just, I'm like, "Oh, pizza again." you know, because you don't want to be ungrateful. Like, we appreciate the fact that
Right.
you're buying free food for us. Thank you.
Right.
But the pizza does get old. So I do try to make it a point to get with my staff. Staff members that have been there, especially, they always have a menu somewhere. They always have, that little stack of guides. So they will let you know what they like, where they like to get it from. And it's nice to change things up, even from a human resource perspective, because if you change up the type of food that the staff are eating, they get an opportunity to have different kind of conversations. So like, for instance, bringing some Spanish dishes in for lunch, my staff are able to have conversations about that food, that heritage, where they grew up, how their parents made it. And so it just lends itself to a different type of team building experience when you go about it that way.
Definitely, definitely, and especially if you have a break room, you can have events like a nice little potluck,
Yes.
or you could and then the types of food you bring in also. Bring in a little chicken wings from one of the top places in the area. It doesn't always
Yeah.
have to be the pizza guy around the store.
No.
Some Chick-fil-A.
Because a lot of times pizza is not even the most economical thing to buy sometimes these days.
True.
It's kind of pricey. So yeah, take a look at that. Get it buy-in from the staff. And the last thing I would say around that, as far as providing food, is just to make sure that you get a good assessment of your staff's dietary needs. There usually is
True.
somebody there that's vegan, vegetarian. I have a lot of
Very
staff members
true.
going keto now. So just trying to make sure I have snacks or options for everybody.
Very true. Very true. Because I am a fish person, so I need
Mhm.
fish. So so what we're going to next? So we have a hot topic. What are we going into next?
So I'm looking at Leslie's comment. Says hard to believe that OSHA doesn't have specifications for their break room. Yeah, it was a little shocking. I'll definitely drop the link in the comments section. And before we switch gears, I do want to talk a little bit about HR etiquette in the break area. So just be mindful, like we said earlier, it just because it is a break room does not mean that it's not exposed to all the same rules and policies on etiquette. So be mindful of your conversation, mindful of the things that you say. I do find a lot of times when people are offended by conversations, it's usually topics that we've already cautioned to kind of keep it cute or keep it mute is what I tell my staff. So like things like politics, you know, having deep conversations about race relations, things like that can
Religion.
really religion, yeah, sexuality, it can really go sideways in the break room. So I just again just caution folks to just be mindful of your audience and be mindful of your statements.
Definitely, definitely. I do agree. What else you have? What else we have going on in break rooms? That's it. Are we
That's
rolling to the next thing?
let's roll. We
All
rolling out
right.
the gate.
So let me change our little banner here. And all right. So we're gonna bring this in. That's what you have on here.
What is
You
this?
wanted to show this, or
I can't see it. Oh yes. All right. So we were switching over into social media. And this played a little bit into break room etiquette because typically this is where folks are going to have their phones out. This is where they're going to be checking their Facebook, their snaps, their Instagram. They may be watching videos on YouTube. So we just wanted to touch a little bit on social media etiquette. This conversation came up earlier in a group of leaders, and so I know we're going to have a bigger conversation about it, but I just wanted to drop a few things for folks to have quick access to. So, as far as social media guidelines, and this is for everyone, this is not for just leadership, this is anybody that's working in the hospital. One of the first things that we do is we take a suite of classes and we sign off on a whole bunch of policies. And usually, one of those policies is a social media policy. You may or may not remember that because it's usually done in your orientation process. So if if you've been in your job for a while and you're not familiar with your social media policy, I highly encourage you to either ask a leader for a copy or check out wherever your policies are stored and download a copy of that. The reason being is because almost all of us will at some point do something related to that social media policy just simply because we have our phones with us at work. So that may be taking a picture with a coworker. It may be taking a selfie. It may be taking a picture of something cool that you see at work. So you just really want to be mindful that you're not stepping outside of the policy and that you're not violating any type of HIPAA violations. So I know we're talking to a group of healthcare workers, but just in case you're not familiar, those HIPAA protections protect all confidential health information for our patients. And as technicians or as staff, we are only to have access to the information that we need to do our jobs. So you, like for instance, for SPD, usually that's a preference card or things of that nature will have some patient information on it, will tell you what they need for the case. And we are to use that to build the case. We are to use that for nothing else. So when we're done with it, we're to throw it away. So things like going into Epic and checking on different patient records is always a no. I'm fairly certain even for checking on yourself, like if you were to go in there and log in and check on your own records, there may be some different nuances to that. So just be mindful anytime that you are at work and you're using your phone for pictures, phone video, things like that, you want to be adhering to your social media policy. If you don't have a social media policy or you need some help producing one, CDC has some guidelines on their website, so that's what I have shown up here. I'll drop this in the comments of the group. They have a sample social media policy that's followed by the CDC, and then they have some specific guidelines for Facebook and Twitter, and then also some security mitigations. So that's another big thing to think about is security and privacy for your facility and for yourself. We see a lot of ransomware. We do a lot of training to protect the computer systems. So again, you just want to be making sure that you're not even accidentally exposing your facility to any undue stress. And then if you scroll down the CDC website, they give you some tips on how to write for social media. And they also talk about specifics around like podcasts and blogs and things of that nature. So they've got a little PDF here for tips on how to write, basically just kind of some general guidelines on how to keep your content general and to use it for your efforts, because CDC, FDA, all of our big oversight committees are definitely understanding the power of social media as far as educating staff and patients on clinical procedures. And we're also seeing a lot of partnerships come into the healthcare space. So, like folks like Microsoft, folks like Google are starting to partner with different health systems on MER information, on Epic information, things like that, on education. So, it's not going anywhere, right? This marriage between healthcare and social media, we just want to make sure that we're following the policy so that we are not causing any issues for the facility or causing or putting our positions in any type of jeopardy.
And definitely, because I've seen persons taking selfies um,
Yeah.
at the facilities. Is that a breach in the contract or
It's gonna
policy?
it's gonna depend on your policy. And I would say that the best advice I could give for that is to check your surroundings. You want to make sure that nothing with your hospital, like logo, name, branding, even the colors, because we don't think about this, but the color schemes for hospitals are a part of their media and marketing package. So even the tones, if you have those in the background, you want to be mindful of that. You always want to make sure that there's no patient identifying information in there, no pictures of patients, no, nothing of their care area. I would really caution you against that. So just be mindful. And if you don't know, ask. You can check in with your leadership. If your leadership is not familiar, you could check in with your compliance department. Usually these social media policies are a part of the compliance and ethics area. So do your due diligence, because what you don't want is to post something on social media and to have your manager come back to you and let you know that you violated the policy.
Yes, guys, be very careful with your selfie pics. If you're taking photos of instrumentation,
Yes.
um, incorrect instrumentation, broken instrumentation, instrumentation that is not assembled properly, mistakes within the department, on your decontaminant clean sides. I've seen that. Loaners coming in, your whole process is scrutinized by everyone on social media if you post that. Okay, if you're posting that you did a good job in your department and you have your bios sitting on a desk exposed, people are going to look at that and say, why your bios out? Or you have your loaners stacked three, four, five on top of the other, and they went through the autoclave process. People are going to ask about that. So you want to make sure if you're going to post anything that you examine your background and make sure there's nothing that could hold your facility liable for any wrongdoings or bad practices, etc. So, so yeah, definitely,
Absolutely.
definitely.
And
And
then
mhm.
there's some there's definitely been famous cases for employees that have violated their social media policy. And usually when I see that, it's egregious violations. Like they're posting videos of themselves harassing patients, or just really conducting themselves in a manner that even without it being posted on social media would have compromised their positions in the first place. So, intent also matters. If you're someone that was just taking an innocent selfie in Deacon Town, I don't think that you need to be, walking on eggshells about posting your picture. But something like that where you have like a facility that's posting pictures of a patient in their care area is something a little more
Now,
confidential.
if you're going to be making an entire video in your decontamination area, you're going to be monetizing that video, you
Oh no,
definitely
you can't
want
do
to.
that.
Yeah, it happens all. I've seen it. Just go to YouTube, type in cell processing.
Yeah, you can't
so
do that.
so
Check
mm,
those social media policies. You definitely want to be careful about double dipping, if you will. I know a lot of us are starting our own small businesses, our own podcasts, things of that nature. But we did sign code of ethics, and you definitely don't want to be in a position where you're using that facility to generate income for yourself. That's something that can get you into hot water really quickly.
Definitely, definitely. So, guys, if you have your social media pages and you're posting and you're monetizing that your facility could definitely approach you and ask you some questions. And
Because it's a conflict of interest,
yeah,
and typically you will sign a document about conflict of interest at least once a year, where they ask you to declare any conflicts you may have, and to talk about those types of things, because there are a lot of rules around how we can make money, what kind of gifts we can receive, things of that nature. So, like in SPD, we talk about it a lot because the reps are not supposed to bring us food.
mm,
It's one of the or no, I won't say unwritten, it's a written rule. It's a written rule. But you want to be mindful.
yeah, definitely, definitely. And if you have, okay, let's say you have your profile, all right, and you have your facility name in there,
Yeah.
and then you're posting content about a facility you work at negatively. The correlation would be, hey, that's the name you have on your profile,
Yes.
and that's most likely who you're referring to.
Absolutely.
So
I would
just be very
definitely
careful.
caution you not to use specific facility names. And then definitely you want to be careful with that. Making any type of disparaging or slanderous comments about a facility, and it's we see it a lot in different spaces where someone will have I'll say a social media incident, and the comment section is like, okay, let's go to their profile, let's see where they live, let's see where they work, let's
Yeah,
report, call their boss, let's call their
yeah.
city, things
Hmm.
like that. So that type of conduct is out there, and sometimes I don't know if we pay a lot of attention to how much of our personal information is posted, but also many of us in our field at this time are standing up on social media, as technicians, which is something that we really need, right? We really need for people to know who we are, what we do. We want to represent ourselves professionally. So it's just making sure that you've checked the rules, you've checked the policies before you proceed, just like we do for SPD, check that IFU before you proceed.
Yes, and guys, um, just a piece of advice: if you have an issue, try to address somebody individually, especially on social media. An expert, go to that person versus sharing it for to an entire group of thousands of people, because you never know who's in that group that
That's
may
very true.
that may know somebody you know, that may know somebody you work for. So
Especially in the
try,
CSPD space, because it's a small
yeah,
world.
it's a small world. So try and find that one person. Okay, that person had an issue like that last week. Let me ask them, in versus just sharing the photo and just saying what you think.
Yeah.
So people will definitely look at your profile, look at your past photos to find out, what selfies you took, what your badge
Yeah.
says, who works with you. They'll look at your friends to find out where you work. So definitely, guys, just be
Be mindful.
cognizant and mindful of that when you're posting, taking your selfies, and hanging out.
Yeah.
Because anywhere you mention Victoria Hospital, when you post that picture, everybody's going to look like, oh, she or he works at Victoria Hospital. Oh, that's the co-worker in Victoria Hospital. So they must, oh, that's in Massachusetts.
Oh
So
yeah.
they definitely gonna make that
Oh yeah.
link.
And I mean,
So
these groups are big. These social media
mhm.
groups for SPD are pretty large. Some of them are a couple thousand people. So and
Mhm.
SPD is an underground field, if you will. So just a couple thousand people in a group, that's us. That's the family. So you're gonna
and
know somebody in there.
and plus we have an increase in travelers now. So somebody on the East Coast could remember they worked somewhere on the West Coast a couple
Oh
of
yeah.
years ago and actually know what facility that is. So you have people crisscrossing the country. So your
Yes.
issue may not be a secret to you. You may have travelers who came through that know exactly where you are.
Oh
So
yeah.
definitely be mindful of that.
It's one of the main reasons why I caution people about misrepresenting themselves on their resumes, because of this very reason. You don't know who's gonna look at that thing, who's gonna see your name and go, such and such facility. No, no, no. I used to work there. I worked there during this time. She wasn't a lead tech extraordinaire. That
Right.
that wasn't her position. you
Exactly,
know?
exactly, exactly. And then
Oh,
people know each other too. So, sometimes a call gets made to somebody who works at that specific hospital or facility. So, and hey, how was that person working? Did
yeah.
they give it? Were they in Dick and Tam? Oh, they didn't like Dick and Tam. Like, oh, were they on time? No, that person wasn't on time. So sometimes you get those courtesy calls, just to weed through resumes when you have a bunch of resumes and you have really good looking resumes sometimes, and you want to find out if that's actually true, what the resume is stating. So definitely, be mindful of that. I
Yeah.
have had some instances of that. So
Yes.
yeah, so
Oh yeah,
yeah,
look, we got a comment about that. That very true. We've had folks call our HR and reach out to our marketing team to share concerns about the online post. Absolutely. And I'm so glad that she mentioned the marketing teams. Because there are social media and marketing releases
yes,
for
yeah,
all facilities.
yeah,
So if you are someone that, like, let's say your department wants to put together some education videos, or they want to make some media posts. Most hospitals do have a
hmm,
at least a Facebook
yeah,
page, a LinkedIn page now. So they will actively be looking for good
yes,
stories to post on their marketing. So you could talk to them about that. They can actually help you with that. A lot of times, like we talked about earlier, different things that you might not think about, like the font size and type, the color scheme, are all part of a branding package. And a lot of facilities will have a website or web page where you can actually access all the blank templates for that facility, so that, let's say you're making in-service materials, or you're doing some type of sign up page, you can actually go onto that page and print off branded approved marketing materials from the facility. You can get those releases signed and make sure that everybody is being compliant. And I find that those marketing teams are usually the nicest, most helpful people. They want to get good information posted about what's going on inside the hospitals.
yeah, and definitely, guys, reach out to those people. I have had some. I'm not perfect. I've made some boo boos in my time. Trying to celebrate my team and
Mhm.
posting stuff. But definitely, you reach out to them and find exactly what you can and cannot do. And shout outs to Marie Brewer for coming on. That was her comment. We appreciate it. And Leslie, um, and Celeste Osmond. Am I saying that
Hey.
right? Celeste, thank you for tuning in. We appreciate you guys. So social media definitely, and I don't know if I should touch on the blaming the victim. Should I touch on that? No.
Hey,
Yes.
go ahead.
So I see in our facility, in our industry, sometimes we tend to, if I say, okay, for example, if I say, well, my manager is treating me incorrectly or negatively, and suppressing my knowledge. And then sometimes we get, oh, well, maybe you're saying the wrong things, or maybe you're not approaching it right. Maybe you have bad body language. Maybe you're not using the right terminology. And I think at times we tend to blame the victims instead of looking at the situation and saying, hey, well, you're not at fault here. This is you're at effect to what's happening to you. And
Yeah.
so it's just like you see. Let me go to extreme. Someone gets raped, and then you say, "Hey, well, maybe your dress was too short, or maybe you're walking in the wrong area. Maybe your hair is too long. Maybe you should tighten the ponytail. Maybe
Right.
your heels were too high." So that's how I call it that too. What we see now in our industry now, it's like we blame
Where you're kind of
it.
looking past the bigger issues, the macro
Mhm.
issues, and hyper focusing on the individual's experience. And a lot can get lost when that's happening. And especially when we are having industry talk, if we're having industry conversations, it's important to remember, that we are talking about a group of individuals, right? We are giving you knowledge, we are giving you our experiences so that you can carry that with you as an individual. But however, we're also, all these different podcasts are also having big conversations about the state of SPD and how did we get here and where are we going. So definitely as leaders, you want to create a safe space where technicians and managers and other folks in this industry can come in and say, this is my experience, this is what's
Mhm.
happening to me, this is how it makes me feel, this
Right.
is how or even this is how I interpreted it,
Mhm.
and just have a space where you say, I believe you. And
Exactly.
here's,
Exactly.
and here's how
Exactly.
I've handled that.
Exactly.
Um,
Hold
but
on. Hold on. Hold on. Yes. 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 Like
it's
sometimes it's
important
just like, really. Yeah.
to get the validation. It's important to get the validation, especially when it's your family. It's your peers, it's your community. So as a SPD tech, if I'm coming in and I'm saying, every Friday night they hitting me with 40 loaners and I'm the only one here until 11 o'clock and they're dropping them off at 10 and I have to stay, like that's a story that we hear all the time. And I would just, I mean, we're gonna have a lot of resources for that person, right? We may talk to them about how to talk to their manager, how to talk to the peri-op department, how to talk to the surgeons. But we also need to make space for the fact that we have a lot of technicians and we have a lot of leaders that have tried those methods and they weren't successful. And we want to just raise them up and let them know that you weren't not successful because you weren't trying. You weren't not successful because you weren't putting forth a good product. Your PowerPoint was perfect. Your standards were on. Your professionalism was there. Your dedication was there. And it's just simply that because of these different macro issues that we have in the industry, you weren't able to get the result that you absolutely should have
Gotten.
gotten. Right.
Yeah.
Because I think that's something else that as a leader, I really want to make sure I solidify when I'm dealing with my staff is that there are things that you absolutely should have, and there are things that should absolutely never happen to you. And I'm
Exactly.
always going to advocate for those things not to happen to you. So we try to we it is customer based, right? So there is that push to customers always right. We always want to try to meet the need, and at the end of it there's a patient. So that's what drives SPD is we're going to get it done no matter what, right? Because that patient is at the end of this, regardless of if that nurse is talking wild or that surgeon ain't making no sense. We still got to hit the mark for the patient.
Mhm.
However, when we digest and we have time to come back and we're in our in services and we're in our one-on-ones and we're in our meetings with infection control and risk and things like that, we really do need to make space to have some real conversations about what technicians face out on the floors and how to resource them and how to talk about things that are difficult and challenging and the times where things didn't go our way, the times where employees raised concerns and they weren't heard, they weren't protected, they were terminated, they were written up, they were retaliated against in different ways.
Yeah.
I have techs complain all the time that they went to a supervisor and complained about something and for the next week they were in decontam. Those are real stories. And so we want to make space to talk about the process, the practice, what's safe and what's honorable, but we also want to be real and talk about what's happening right now for technicians on the ground.
Definitely. Definitely. Hold on 1 second. And that and those are great points because a lot of times I hear when we say, "Hey, I've been trying to get this washer, I've been trying to get a raise for my team, I've been trying to get a break room, I've been trying to get that promotion," and a lot of the feedback I keep hearing is like, "Are you doing it right? Are you saying the right
Yeah.
thing? Are you approaching it right? Is your body language right? Are you using the right terminology?" And at times I feel that people don't get that validation, like, I believe you, you did the right thing, you
Yeah.
approach it the right way, you may need some assistance, but I believe with your experience and your acumen of all these years you've been doing this, I
Right.
believe that you know and understand what you're doing. So
I think it's one of the things that lends itself to um the gap that comes in between labor and management, because a lot of times I'll hear the staff talk as though supervisors and managers don't respect their level of expertise, or what they bring to the table, as though being just a tech is somehow a lowly position, when in all actuality that's the most important player on the SBD team. You you can do a as a manager, I can do a lot to push larger issues, but it's the individual text that make the magic, period. That's never gonna, that's never me. And I make sure that as a manager, I'm always representing them in that fact. Like, if we do something bad or good, it's the team that did this together. It's never, well, I had a great idea and you know, because I am not in decatam, I am not in assembly, I'm not in sterilizing, I'm not pulling case cards. I'm working on policies and procedures. I'm working on, working with other groups and making sure that procedure areas are doing SPD properly and things of that nature. But you can't discount somebody's experience. And just because you were able to successfully navigate something doesn't mean that everybody else was able to successfully navigate it. And I think that's something else to remember. Like, especially for as diverse as we are, technicians find roadblocks for gender,
yeah,
age, race,
true. Yeah.
even the tone of voice, in the sense of like accents. I've seen
Mm,
technicians be passed up for positions just because the person that was hiring them said that they couldn't understand them.
mhm,
And they were speaking perfect English. It's just they had an accent and
mm,
that person wasn't familiar with the accent. So,
yeah,
that type of stuff happens.
it does. It does. What's that level of discrimination called?
I don't know.
Dang, I just had it in my head. Um, yeah, look that up.
Yeah, you gotta look
So,
that up.
discrimination of different races.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
I,
That
I
is that
definitely,
part.
I definitely have had issues with that in my career. People hear my accent and they're like, "Oh, well, he's from the Caribbean. He's laid back. He isn't really assertive." So you tend to get that. Even my African brothers and my Filipinos, they tend to get
Mhm.
that same feedback. Well, the English is not too strong, and you get that little accent, especially from my African brethren. Sometimes you get the perception that they don't understand the situation. Even
Yes.
one of my African friends a nurse came to the pick room, and she assumed he had no idea, but he's very experienced. She
Oh
assumed
yeah.
because he couldn't speak, he had that strong accent that he didn't understand what she was saying, and he was explaining to her about the case card and everything was going on, but she had the perception that he had no idea. She wanted to speak to someone else who knew about it. So
Yeah.
sometimes you get that preconception of somebody based on the accent or how they look or where they're from. So
I had that happen. Um, I've experienced that with technicians, and I experience it a lot for my travel staff. Because I do find that they usually are, immigrants from or first generation immigrants of some type. And but what I also find a lot with my travelers is they're usually in some type of dual program, like they're either coming out of a scrub tech program or they're in nursing school or things of that nature. And so it really is disheartening when you see people just assume that they're ignorant to a topic. And then this person is sitting here, studying quantum physics in the break room. So it's like
mhm,
you just gotta kind of be mindful of yourself. But I do want to encourage that. It's just, we as leaders, it's important that we remember what it is like to be a technician. However you see that for yourself, whether that's you getting on the floor as often as you can, or you doing one-on-ones as often as you can with your staff. But just I would like to see more of us, if you will, having conversations about what staff are facing in the real world and what they can do. There's a lot of tools out there. We see a lot of stuff coming out, a lot of templates and things that are coming out, which is all helpful. But we know that there are times where technicians ask for things or SPD managers ask for things and they don't receive them. So it's important to talk about what to do if you don't get approved for those new sterilizers. If you are using machines that are way past end of life,
Mm.
what kind of other things can you do? And then just being realistic that there are limits to how much you can advocate for something before you become a nuisance. And being a nuisance in your healthcare space is not something that is desirable.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
Let's
And
say that.
I go and should I drop a bomb on that? And
No.
I did get the info to that. It's called xenophobia. So
Xenophobia, yes.
yeah, so that's discrimination against persons from different countries. So you definitely get that a lot. You get sad to say, but you get a lot of foreign people assigned to certain tasks or relegated to certain areas within the department, and those persons rarely get promoted.
Yeah.
I feel that's definitely
Yeah. It's definitely one
not
of
a
the
positive
things
thing.
that I'm on the fence about when it comes to like career promotion, because one of the best things that you can do to move your career forward, especially if you're new and you don't have a lot of experience, is jumping into task, and just taking ownership of certain things, so that the people that are around you, the leaders that are around you, are like, they think about you when they think about somebody that's taking charge, somebody they can count on. But the flip side of that is that sometimes you can get stuck in those positions where people are like, well, such and such is doing it,
Yeah,
so I don't have to hire anybody for that. I don't have to put them in that
exactly.
position. I don't have to create a vacancy in their spot by moving them to this one. And that is definitely something that managers think about. So it's challenging because then what happens is that technician gets stuck doing tasks that are outside of their job description that they're not being compensated for. And they had kind of in their minds, you're doing like a trade, right? You're saying to yourself, okay, I'm not getting that position, that title, and that pay right now, but I am, doing these tasks so that when it comes up, I can get tapped. But if you see that you're consistently being passed over for those positions, then it's kind of the flip side is happening, right? They're getting a discount for those services, and you're just kind of stuck.
Hmm.
And where it really burns my hide, if you will, is when it's time for you as a technician to go out into the world, to maybe go out and try to find a new position, or even if you're within your facility trying to find a spot to move to, you can't actually list that title because you didn't have it.
Right.
So and that costs real dollars, because that means that you're not qualified for
Hmm.
that higher position at this point. So
Yes.
it's just something that I it's something that I struggle with as a manager, because I don't want to encourage people too much with that. Um, it can be a great way. A lot of managers, that's the story of how they got to their lead tech, their supervisor, their manager positions. But it's a graveyard out there of folks that are stuck in glorified lead tech positions, glorified supervisor positions, and they've been there for years
Hmm. Without the title.
without the title. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
without the pay.
And without the pay. Yeah. If yeah. So do you think we should do the news download?
Let's do one.
Let's do one. Let's do one. All right. So we're going into a short news segment. We'll be right back. Hey guys, this is SterileMD here with the process download.
Wow.
So guys, we're getting into the news. So courtesy of the Chicago Tribune, about 200 nurses at Community First Hospital in Portage Park go on strike. About 200 nurses at Community First Medical Center in Portage Park went on strike on Monday, and citing safe staffing as a top concern. The nurses are part of the National Nursing Organization Committee, National Nurses United Union. They became part of the union in December 2019 and have been negotiating to secure their first contract. The strike was supposed to last one day and end on Tuesday. So hopefully that strike went well. I haven't had seen any follow up on that. So a lot of people are going on strike now. So they're trying to get their dollars up and get the
Get the staff.
conditions that they proper conditions for working. Next
Yeah.
story. Yeah. Any comments on that?
Let us know, guys, if you'd like to hear an episode about that. There definitely are a lot of strikes going on around staffing, around conditions, and there's also a lot of lawsuits that are going on between healthcare workers and hospital organizations. So let us know in the comments if you're interested in us doing an episode or not.
Oh, definitely, definitely. Also, next story, courtesy of the Philadelphia Business Journal, Temple University Health system plans to spend 5 million to enhance their nursing staffing amid nearly double-digit vacancy rates.
Nice.
So the CEO, Michael A. Young, CEO of the Temple Health System and Temple University Hospital, said the initiative is part of the health system's continuous process of reviewing and strengthening our ability to anticipate, prioritize, and fill areas of greatest nursing needs for our patients. So the specific investments will be made in flexible scheduling options, referral bonuses, and higher pay for float nurses. So guys, that's happening in Philadelphia. They're spending an extra 5 million to enhance the situation for nurses. They have double-digit nursing vacancies, and they're trying to fill
Yeah.
that. I believe that's all over the country. That's a
Yeah.
situation that's
It's a
going on right
national
now.
shortage for nurses, technicians of all types. I'm curious to see how these measures work. I didn't hear anything that I don't see regularly already happening in the field as far as bonuses. There's a lot of folks that are reimbursing for education, waiving student debt certain places, but it seems like we don't have a good strong process to keep these people when they come into the facility. So I'm curious to see how this goes as we round through the pandemic and we start to see all these initiatives come into place to try to get people to come back to the hospital.
Definitely, definitely. And some facilities are trying, and some facilities I won't say they're not trying, but it's harder for them to move the needle
Oh
in
yeah.
terms of getting nursing, and it's not only nursing. People tend to focus on nursing because that's the brand name that's out the front. Hey,
Oh yeah.
nurses are doing all they can, but they forget the frontline staff, like
The other
SPP,
right, the other frontline staff.
yeah, like dietary, like
Yes.
patients need to eat, like, and dietary is or and EVS
Oh yeah.
around the clock, like and
EVS especially, it's one of the biggest patient satisfaction scores is cleanliness of your hospital. So definitely people do forget those minor characters they try to make them out to be,
yeah,
but there's a shortage for radiation techs, ultrasound techs, scrub techs, SPD techs. They need everything.
yeah, definitely, definitely. So guys, um, are we heading out?
We're headed out.
So guys, thank you for tuning in, and we appreciate the comments. Thank you to everyone. We'll be heading out.
If you
And catch
guys
us.
haven't joined us Saturday for the process walk,
Yes,
we
yes,
are
yes.
live at 8:30 Eastern time. Feel free to hop on. You can find us if you go to the process group. You will see a button for rooms. Just click on the button and you can join us there.
Yes, definitely. Join us. And here's Alessandra. She has a website now. The website will be in the comments. And join us every Wednesday night, guys, at 7 p.m. We'll bring you some good interviews. Some new guests will be coming on, and
Awesome.
we'll bring you some hot topics. And we appreciate you guys tuning in, and we'll see you next week. All the information will be in the description, so check it out. Peace.